The sun was still hanging low when Brigadier General Olivia Reynolds eased her black Ford Edge into the dusty lot of a quick fuel gas station off Route 29. Just outside of Culpeper County, Virginia, the dust danced in the air like particles of memory. She had just wrapped a long high-stakes debrief at a restricted military site outside D.C. Her uniform crisp, boots polished. Her nameplate gleamed on her chest. She looked tired but not defeated, the kind of tired that comes with knowing you've carried more than most people will ever understand. She stepped out and stretched her back, taking a long breath of the humid air before grabbing her phone from the center console. A message from her aide blinked across the screen, but she ignored it. First coffee, then back on the road. Inside the gas station it was nearly empty. Just a teenage clerk behind the counter wearing a hoodie that read Bass Pro Shops and a man flipping through scratch-off tickets in the corner. Olivia grabbed a bottle of water and a protein bar, then headed to the counter. The clerk didn't say anything at first, just stared. His eyes moved to the patches on her arm, then to her face, then back to the badge clipped to her uniform. "You in the military or something?" he asked slowly, with a tone that carried more disdain than curiosity. "I am," she replied plainly, placing her items down. He hesitated, then rang her up. She paid in cash and offered a polite thank you. But as she turned to leave, she felt the air shift, that quiet tension, the kind that doesn't need words to announce itself. Back outside, she stood near her SUV and took a moment to call her driver. He was supposed to meet her further down the road. She spoke softly, but clearly, still in full view of the storefront windows. As she finished her call and looked down at her watch, she caught movement in the corner of her eye. Two sheriff's cruisers pulled in fast. One cut in behind her SUV. The other parked near the pumps. Doors opened, boots hit pavement. For a split second she wondered if there had been a robbery nearby. But the way they looked at her, hands already near holsters, jaws clenched, told her otherwise. The first officer, a tall man with thinning blonde hair and mirrored sunglasses, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to put that phone down and keep your hands where I can see them." She blinked, then said calmly, "I'm Brigadier General Olivia Reynolds. I just came from," I said, "hands where I can see them." "Now." The voice cut through the air like a blade. The second officer circled behind her, closer than necessary. The smell of aftershave mingled with threat. She slowly placed her phone on the hood of her vehicle, and kept her hands visible. "I'd like to know what this is about," she said, still measured, counting the seconds between each heartbeat. "We got a call about someone matching your description. Acting suspicious, military gear, loitering, aggressive attitude." The words fell like stones thrown to hurt. She looked from one to the other, stunned. "I've been here 6 minutes. I bought a snack, made a call, and stood by my car." "You have any ID on you?" the second officer asked, already reaching toward his cuffs. "Yes, you can check." But before she could finish, he grabbed her left wrist with unnecessary force. "Sir, I'm a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army. You are making a mistake. You're not above the law because you play dress up," the first one spat. That's when she knew. This wasn't about a suspicious call, this was about control. He twisted her arms behind her back and slapped the cuffs on tighter than necessary. Her body tensed, but she didn't resist. No sudden moves, no raised voice, just controlled breathing and acute awareness. The parking lot had grown quieter. The man with the scratch-off tickets was now at the window. A woman getting gas paused mid-fill, phone in hand. The whole scene was turning still. The officers didn't seem to care. Her rank meant nothing. Her poise meant nothing. Her uniform, they saw a threat where there was none. But that wasn't the end of it. Because Olivia Reynolds wasn't just anyone. And she had a line to people who didn't wait for permission to act. Handcuffed in broad daylight, in full uniform, Brigadier General Olivia Reynolds, a woman who had commanded hundreds, negotiated with foreign generals, and advised high-ranking U.S. officials, was now standing between two county deputies like a common suspect. No reading of rights. No explanation beyond the word suspicious. The second officer, shorter, stockier, and red in the face, tugged at her elbow to guide her toward the cruiser. She didn't resist. Her expression didn't waver, but her heart had shifted into a quiet storm. "Where's your ID?" "Now?" the taller one barked as he searched her SUV without consent. "In the side pocket of my bag, clearly marked." "You people always got an excuse," he muttered. He reached in and yanked the bag out like it was contraband. Olivia kept her eyes ahead. The sweat on her back wasn't from the heat. It was from restraint. Every instinct screamed to speak, to assert her authority, but she knew how quickly things could go wrong. In the wrong hands, rank becomes threat. Silence was her shield. "Now you're gonna tell me why you're wearing all this?" the second officer asked, yanking her around so she faced him. "Trying to scare people? This is a real uniform." "I've served this country for 26 years, she said. "Truth as an unsheathed weapon." He smirked. "Yeah, and I'm the Queen of England." She could feel the stares now. 2 construction workers stood by their truck across the lot. A teenager on a bicycle had stopped at the edge of the property, phone pointed in their direction. The woman who had been pumping gas was still recording, mouth slightly open, unmoving. One of the officers glanced at the onlookers and muttered, "Get back to what you're doing. Ain't none of your business." The teenager didn't budge. Olivia inhaled slowly through her nose. The steel of the cuffs bit into her wrist bone. She'd had worse bruised ribs from combat training, fractured finger during a base lockdown in Kandahar, but nothing quite like this. Because this felt personal. "I need to speak with my Pentagon liaison," she said clearly, each syllable like a building block being carefully placed. The short officer laughed. "You are what?" "My Pentagon liaison. I have direct clearance." The taller one rolled his eyes. "Lady, we've heard every trick in the book. You really think anyone's gonna believe you're some big shot when you're standing here in cuffs? I think you should check the badge number on my ID. And I think you should make that call before this becomes bigger than you can handle." "Is that a threat?" he snapped, stepping closer. His breath carried rancid coffee and arrogance. "It's a suggestion," she replied. Silence stretched between them. Behind it, the hum of the gas pumps continued. The quiet shuffle of people too scared or too stunned to speak up. But the phones stayed up. The red recording dots blinked quietly in the light. The officer holding her bag finally opened the ID case. "Colonel, no, Brigadier General Reynolds," he said, confusion creeping into his voice like water into dry soil. The second officer snatched it out of his hand and frowned, then looked at her, then at the badge again. "Doesn't change what the clerk said," he grumbled, holding on to the last bit of his control. That was the pivot point. Olivia could feel it, that brief moment when doubt began to settle into their confidence. But ego is a stubborn beast, and for some admitting a mistake is harder than facing the consequences of it. The taller officer pulled out his radio and muttered something unintelligible. The younger one, still flustered, looked around again. More people had gathered, still quiet, still watching, but watching was enough, and Olivia wasn't finished. Not even close. Time didn't stop, but it sure started dragging. Brigadier General Olivia Reynolds stood still, wrists bound, the weight of a nation's service stitched across her chest, and not a single thread seemed to matter. What mattered, apparently, was that a gas station clerk in a quiet Virginia town had called the cops, said a black woman in army gear was causing concern. That's all it took. She scanned the growing crowd. 6, maybe 7 people now. 2 older men by the ice machine. A young woman in scrubs on her lunch break. The kid on the bike, still recording, thumbs steady. Not one of them said a word out loud, but their silence spoke plenty. Then from the edge of the parking lot, a voice cut through. "That lady's a general, man." Everyone turned. It was a boy. Maybe 17, maybe 18. Ball cap on backward, chin up like he was daring them to argue. He held up his phone like a shield. The shorter cop turned toward him, irritation already simmering. "You need to keep out of this, son." "I'm not your son," the boy shot back, "and I can record this. That's the law." The taller officer's eyes flicked toward Olivia, then back to the kid. "Why don't you go back to whatever you were doing?" "I was watching a woman in uniform get cuffed for buying water, so I'm still doing that." The comment hung in the air like a punch nobody wanted to take credit for. Olivia didn't move, didn't speak. She had the kid's face memorized now. The world was shifting. People were watching. People were noticing. And someone finally had spoken. But even that didn't stop the tension from thickening. You think that uniform makes you special? The short cop asked her suddenly, voice lower, more private. You think that badge protects you everywhere? She didn't answer. He didn't want one. He leaned closer, his breath hot and bitter. Let me tell you something. Out here I don't care what patch you got on your shoulder. You act like you're above us, you'll learn real quick that you ain't. She looked him in the eye, her voice low but certain. It's not about being above, it's about knowing the rules. And right now you are breaking more than one. That landed. He pulled back, his jaw twitched. The officer with her bag had stopped moving. The ID badge in his hand was no longer just some laminated card. It was a problem, a question, a liability. He looked to his partner, searching for what to do next. Olivia took that pause and did what she was trained to do. Assess, calculate, respond. She tilted her wrist slightly, turning it just enough. Her smartwatch screen lit up. She tapped a sequence, silent, fast, and spoke with sharp clarity. Authorization Bravo 3. Emergency protocol. Connect Pentagon liaison. The short cop turned sharply. What the hell are you doing? Making a phone call. The watch chimed. A robotic voice followed. Connecting. Secure line. Please wait. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. Just waited as if this were just another briefing. Just another hour in the field. Seconds later, a voice came through the speaker. Crisp, controlled. General Reynolds. This is Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell. Are you safe to speak? The officers froze. Her voice remained steady as tempered steel. No, I've been detained unlawfully. Rural Virginia. County unit. Immediate assistance required. Understood. Stay in place. Response team inbound. The line went dead. No threats. No raised voices. Just facts delivered like artillery. The officers didn't move at first. Just stood there blinking. The silence was heavier now. The taller one finally spoke. But it wasn't a command. It was a whisper. What did you just do? I did what you refused to do. She replied. I called someone who actually knows who I am. But knowing wasn't enough. Because in a matter of minutes, everyone else was about to find out too. The parking lot felt different now. Not quieter. Just tighter. Like everyone was holding their breath. The taller cop shifted his stance. Like his boots suddenly felt too small. He glanced at his partner, who was still holding her military ID like it had turned radioactive. General Reynolds stood between them. Hands cuffed behind her back. Shoulders square. Her expression hadn't changed. But the air around her had. She wasn't a woman waiting for permission anymore. She was a woman waiting for backup. You got someone coming here? The shorter cop finally asked. The edge in his voice replaced with something else. Not fear. Not yet. But hesitation. Yes, she said. And they won't be asking for introductions. He looked at his partner again. We need to call this in. The taller one hesitated. She could be bluffing. Bluffing doesn't get you a Pentagon line, Rick. Olivia didn't move. She didn't need to. They were unraveling right in front of her. Another onlooker spoke up. The woman in scrubs by the gas pump. She said she's a general. The woman called. Why don't y'all just check? She gave her ID, said the teenager on the bike. I saw it. It said general. You cuffed a damn general, man. The shorter cop's voice cracked when he said, I don't care who she is. She acted hostile and no. Olivia cut in. I bought water, stood by my car and made a phone call. That's what happened. He took a step back like he'd been pushed. She hadn't raised her voice. Didn't need to. The truth was its own weapon. 5 minutes passed, maybe 6. She watched a black Escalade glide past on the highway and disappear behind a line of trees. Then another vehicle pulled in. It wasn't black. It wasn't federal. Just a silver Ford F-150. But inside was a man who'd been on the other end of that smartwatch call. Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell stepped out, coat still unbuttoned, Idaho already clipped to his belt. He walked with urgency, but no panic, purpose in every step. The officers stiffened. Olivia just blinked once, slowly. General Reynolds, Mitchell said, voice carrying weight. You all right? I'm not injured, she replied. Just unlawfully detained. He turned to the two deputies. I'm going to need the cuffs off her now. They didn't move. I said now. You've already made this worse than it had to be. The taller one stepped forward like he wanted to argue, but stopped himself. With a few clumsy motions, he reached behind her and released the cuffs. The steel snapped open. Olivia brought her hands in front of her body, rubbing the skin around her wrists. No marks, just pressure, but pain didn't always leave bruises. You have ID? The taller cop asked Mitchell, trying to salvage some authority. Mitchell turned toward him slowly, as if he wasn't used to being questioned by local deputies. You think the Pentagon sends someone without it? He handed over a sleek leather case. Inside was federal clearance, the kind that doesn't come with explanations. I need all body cam footage preserved, Mitchell added. And I'd suggest you don't tamper with it. The shorter officer finally said it, the one word neither of them wanted to admit out loud. We made a mistake. No, Olivia corrected him. You made a decision. Don't sugarcoat it. Mitchell looked at her, then back at the growing crowd. Half a dozen phones were still out, maybe more. Gentlemen, you might want to talk to your superiors, he said, because this is already above your pay grade. But the consequences were only beginning, and the weight of what they'd done was about to land hard and fast. It wasn't sirens or flashing lights. It was something colder, quieter, more deliberate. 20 minutes after Mitchell arrived, 3 black SUVs rolled into the quick fuel lot, like they had been rehearsing it for weeks. No squealing tires, no shouting, just doors opening in sequence, and a group of men and women in suits stepping out like chess pieces sliding into place. People moved fast. Onlookers who had been standing frozen minutes ago now backed up, lowering their phones slightly, but not hitting stop. You could feel it. Something was about to shift, and everyone knew it. One of the agents approached Mitchell. He leaned in, whispered something, then turned to Olivia. Ma'am, we'll have you debriefed off-site. You can ride with me. Olivia nodded once. I'm fine to wait. I want to hear what happens next. Right here. She wasn't going to be whisked away, not until the people who put her in cuffs had to face what they'd done in front of everyone who saw it. The taller officer, Rick, looked more pale than sunburned now. The weight of command was off him, and he didn't know how to carry that vacuum. A woman stepped forward from the SUV team. Her badge read Office of Military Legal Affairs. Which one of you initiated the stop? She asked, voice sharp enough to cut steel. They both hesitated. The shorter one finally cleared his throat. We got a call from a clerk inside. Said someone in military gear was making threats. The woman turned to the gas station entrance. The clerk, who had been watching nervously from behind the glass, immediately tried to disappear from view. One of the agents peeled off, walking inside with a notepad and a voice recorder. Mitchell crossed his arms, his voice low, but controlled. You understand what you've done here, don't you? You just unlawfully detained a ranking officer of the United States Army in full uniform, without probable cause. You ignored federal identification. You escalated. And now you are about to get a whole lot of attention you didn't plan for. I didn't know she was. The shorter cop started. She told you? Olivia interrupted, her voice level. You looked me in the face and called me a liar. The taller one spoke now. We were responding to a threat call. We didn't know the situation. You knew exactly what the situation was the moment I showed you my ID, she said. You just chose not to believe it. That's the part that matters. No one raised their voice, but the tension crackled in the space between them. Inside the store, the clerk was now red-faced, stammering to the agent questioning him. I didn't mean it like that. I just thought. I mean, you don't see many people walking around dressed like that out here. She looked, I don't know, serious. The agent didn't blink. You said she was aggressive. What exactly did she do? She looked right at me. The clerk muttered. Back outside, Olivia stepped forward, finally pulling her sleeves back down, adjusting the creases of her uniform like she was buttoning herself back into her rightful skin. I've worn this uniform longer than some of you have held a job, she said. Not once did I expect it to be the reason I got treated like a threat in my own country. But that's what happened. Because for people like me, even when we serve, we still get questioned. The suits didn't respond. They didn't need to. They were there to clean up. not to justify. One of them turned to the officers. You are relieved from field duty effective immediately. Your superiors will contact you for an internal investigation. Your body cams have been pulled. Rick's mouth opened then shut. The shorter one didn't say a word. He just stood there red and quiet. But silence doesn't erase harm. And what was done in front of cameras couldn't be undone in the dark. 2 days later, Culpeper County was on every major news outlet. Clips from the gas station incident were stitched together across timelines, soundtracked by outrage. Some people shared it with disbelief. Others weren't shocked at all. Olivia Reynolds wasn't a stranger anymore. She was now the general they handcuffed. The sheriff's office released a 2-line statement. We are conducting an internal review of the events involving Brigadier General Reynolds and cooperating with federal authorities. That was it. No apology. No accountability. But the investigation didn't wait for permission. The Pentagon had already sent transcripts to legal advisors. Body cam footage was processed and archived. The faces of the 2 officers were already circulating frame by frame, analyzed in slow motion. The gas station clerk, Jason Turner, 19 years old, part-time cashier, part-time online gamer, was interviewed by local news the following day. He wore a suit jacket that didn't fit, and sat nervously under fluorescent lights. I didn't mean for it to get that far, he said, eyes darting. I just thought she looked intimidating. I didn't recognize the uniform. When asked what made her intimidating, he stumbled. I don't know. Her presence, her posture. I just panicked. The anchor didn't press him, but the audience didn't miss the undertones. Back at the Pentagon, Olivia sat with a group of internal legal advisors. She gave her statement. No emotion, just detail. One of them offered coffee. She declined. Mitchell was in the room, quiet. He knew her well enough not to offer pity. What do you want us to do, General? One advisor asked. She looked at him, steady. I don't want anyone fired to make a headline. I want the truth documented, procedures corrected, and I want those 2 to never hold a badge again. That's all. They're already on administrative leave. That's not justice, she replied. That's paperwork. The advisor nodded, scribbling something down. Later that week, one of the officers resigned. The other was placed on indefinite suspension. The sheriff didn't fight it, at least not publicly, not with Washington breathing down his neck. But the resignation wasn't the part that mattered. What mattered were the messages, hundreds of them. Letters, emails, voicemails from other service members. From retired veterans, from women who had served and knew that look she had in that parking lot, the one between calm and fury. From teenagers who had seen the video and couldn't stop replaying the way she stood unmoving. As the cuffs went on, one message stood out. It was handwritten, folded into an envelope with a return address in Topeka, Kansas. General Reynolds, I saw you stand there and not flinch. My mom showed me the video. She said, see, this is why I always tell you to carry yourself with purpose. Because people will doubt you even when you do everything right. I'm 13. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Even if we've never met. She read that letter 3 times, because sometimes words from strangers hit deeper than silence from colleagues. When a local paper asked if she planned to press charges, she said no. Not because she didn't have the right, but because she had something better. Visibility. When you force the system to look at itself in the mirror, the cracks show, and once people see them, they can't unsee them. The gas station changed management the following month. The clerk disappeared from social media. The county sheriff's office. No more patrols without body cams. No more anonymous complaint calls without verification. No more excuses. It wasn't a clean ending. It never is. But it was a mark. And marks stay longer than headlines. But what she said next would make people stop scrolling. Because it wasn't just about justice. It was about what justice costs. 3 weeks after the gas station incident, Brigadier General Olivia Reynolds stood behind a simple wooden podium in a modest community center in Alexandria, Virginia. No flags, no backdrop, just folding chairs, local reporters and residents who had come to hear from the woman who, for a moment, had been both invisible and undeniable. She hadn't planned on speaking publicly, after the media storm, after the letters, after being called everything from a symbol of grace under fire to too calm to be credible. She decided to set the record straight. Not with a press team, not with spin, but with her own voice. She wore civilian clothes, a plain navy blouse, gray slacks, no stars, no ribbons, just her. The room was quiet as she adjusted the mic. I didn't come here to relive what happened. You've seen the footage. You've read the headlines. You don't need me to repeat it. She paused, scanning the room. Some people leaned forward. Others sat with their arms crossed. A few held phones already recording. I came here because something's bothering me more than what happened in that parking lot. It's what people said after. She took a deep breath. Some folks said, why didn't she yell? Others said, why didn't she fight back? Or the one that keeps echoing in my head, if that had been me, I wouldn't have stayed so calm. She rested her hands on the podium. You think calm is a choice. You think being handcuffed in uniform with a dozen people watching and 2 cops not listening is a situation where I had options. She didn't raise her voice, but her words hit like weights dropped on a table. Calm is what kept me alive. Calm is what made it possible for me to stand here today. I wasn't calm because I felt safe. I was calm because I didn't. In the front row, a woman in a tan jacket nodded slowly. Olivia continued. There's this idea floating around that service gives you immunity. That if you wear the uniform long enough, if you've earned your stars, you'll be treated with respect. But that's not how it works for everybody. It didn't work for me. A man in the back raised his hand. She pointed at him. General Reynolds, do you think what happened to you was about race? She didn't hesitate. I think it was about assumption. An assumption comes in layers. Skin, gender, tone, posture, all of it. Those officers didn't stop me because they were curious. They stopped me because they didn't expect someone like me to belong in that uniform. A hush followed. No scribbling pens, no shuffling feet, just listening. You want to know the hardest part? She said, eyes steady. It wasn't the cuffs. It wasn't the cameras. It was standing there knowing that if I had spoken 1 octave louder, if I had flinched wrong, if I had moved too fast, I wouldn't be here. She let that settle. You want change? Start by asking different questions. Not why did she stay calm? Ask, why did calm have to be her shield? Why didn't she yell? Ask, why didn't someone step in? She stepped back from the podium slightly. I've served this country on 2 continents. I've briefed presidents. I've lost soldiers under my command. But none of that mattered in a parking lot, 20 minutes from home, because my resume wasn't what they saw. She looked directly into the nearest phone lens. So if you're watching this, if you think you understand justice, fairness, respect, ask yourself, would any of that have protected you that day? And if the answer is no, then maybe we need to stop pretending like the system protects everyone the same. She stepped back fully now. No applause, just silence. But it wasn't empty. It was weighty, real. The kind of quiet that follows truth. Outside the building, kids rode their bikes along the sidewalk. A car alarm chirped in the distance. The world kept moving. But those who heard her that day in person or through the lens of a phone didn't walk away untouched because her story wasn't a headline, it was a warning and a lesson. If this made you pause, even for a second, don't let that be the end. Share it. Talk about it. Teach someone younger than you, someone older, someone who thinks this could never happen. Because the only thing more dangerous than injustice is silence. And just like that, 1 phone call turned the tables. Those officers didn't just underestimate a woman, they underestimated a decorated U.S. general. That day they learned the hard way that true power doesn't need to shout. It just makes 1 call. Want more unbelievable true stories like this one? Then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Because here, the truth always comes out. And it hits hard.